What if your personal growth is just the beginning and true information only happens when you come together as a community? Today I'm honored to welcome a truly inspiring guest, Thomas Brown. Thomas is an artist, author, mental health advocate and podcaster who has transformed immense personal loss into a mission of hope and awareness. After losing his brother to suicide in 2001, Thomas spent years grappling with grief and uncertainty, eventually finding healing through art and advocacy. In 2012, he embarked on a 7,000-mile cross-country bicycle ride for suicide awareness, a journey he chronicles in his book 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. Alongside his artistic pursuits, Thomas has facilitated mental health support groups and created 2 mental health-focused podcasts. Inner Monologue, where he provides a platform for others to share their trials and triumphs, and Stages, an audio diary that delves into his personal mental health journey. His work is deeply rooted in the philosophy of RISE, R-I-S-E, revolution inspired by self-evolution, where personal transformation leads to true change. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernd. It's awesome to be here. I'm very grateful for the invitation to share my story with you and your audience.
It's our pleasure, Thomas. Let's explore where today's podcast episode will lead our conversation.
Awesome.
Thomas, your journey began after the tragic loss of your brother to suicide in 2001. Can you share how your experience shaped your mission as a mental health advocate and artist?
Yeah, I always need to preface that, my brother's suicide, even though it was as devastating as it wasn't the thing that really broke me. I was already kind of lost, scared young man. The cross that I had to bear was codependency, and it was something that I think that I learned from family dynamics. I love my family very much. I never had to want for anything, always had food on the table, roof over the head, clothing on my back. But my parents were very simple people from a simple time in a simple town in the Midwest, and they weren't the wizards and sorceresses that my brother and I probably would have wanted in growing up. They taught us love and compassion, which I think is like a great foundation to start upon for any human being. But there wasn't a lot of innate wisdom just about life and how to navigate that. And I think that just comes with a problem that I know plagues my country in the United States, is that there's a profound lack of awareness about anything, particularly self-awareness.
To my country. So it's
okay. All right. I don't like to speak for places I've never traveled to or have never lived in. So I can only speak for the places I've been. So I just, I was lost, and being extremely codependent, I had the tendency to latch on to individuals that, I don't want to say that they were toxic, but our mixture definitely was very toxic. It wasn't healthy for either of us. And I just, there was a lot of drug use. There was a lot of codependency. There was a lot of not following my dreams. There are things that I wanted to do, but because I was so codependent, I didn't have the courage to, journey out on my own to follow my own dreams. My brother died in 2001, and it wasn't until 2005 that I had the first instinct to do something. I was fine. I was just over it. I was in a toxic relationship with a woman. I had my best friend. Our relationship was toxic, and my first step was to distance myself from my best friend, male friend. And I decided as a non-Christian to walk across the country with my parents' church, which is a very progressive church, open and affirming to people of different sexual orientation, open to the idea that there's other faiths and other religions, the belief that secular art was just as powerful as scripture, justice for all. And so there was a lot of things like that, like just as a human, I was very interested in. And so I went out on this journey with this group of Christians, and it was kind of like theology on the road or Bible study on the road. But instead of becoming a walker and walking with them, they had a filmmaker with them who needed a production assistant. And knowing that I had a love of movies and television, and I did a lot of photography on my own up to that time, they asked if I would take that on as a non-paid production assistant while traveling across the country with a group of strangers. So I did that. And when I came back with that was around 2006. When I came back, I got into film school. I had separated myself from part of my toxic life. I was still in a relationship with a woman, and that was like the next domino to fall. And it wasn't until I'd been doing really good in film school. I'd been making some poignant films, some fun films. And it wasn't until 2008 that I finally realized that I needed more help than what I was doing for myself on a mental, emotional level. And I found myself in a therapist's office, and like she tore me asunder in the best kind of way. She just unraveled the infinite onion layers that is my personality and my character. And it was there that I really got into the idea of self-awareness and how important self-awareness is for mental health.
Yeah.
Understanding.
I think it took some time for you to reveal these onion shells and I was always a very emotional person, and I never had any problem in expressing my feelings. And the friends that I did have, as toxic as we were together, were still very open to listening to me express my feelings. But I would never come out and just use the words like, "Oh, I'm depressed." So I would take it to a certain distance, but I wouldn't go all the way. And I think not giving myself those labels of how I was feeling emotionally is what kept me from looking for help. Mm-hmm. But I finally did. And I really learned just a lot about myself. And, when it comes to self-awareness and really understanding who you are, there's a couple different levels of self-awareness. You have character, the idea of understanding who you are as a character, but also understanding your body through meditation and breath work, and realizing that your body is going to be, your body's never going to trick you. Your mind does a masterful job of trying to protect you from certain feelings and certain thoughts, even though it can also, on the other side of the coin, be a golem and just feed you really horrible things. But your body's never going to lie. Your body is going to be your first tell. It's just learning how to ignore your head and focus on your body. Your body's going to let you know if you don't like a situation, or if you're, based on stress or anxiety. So that's one level of self-awareness, is really learning your emotions through the feeling of your body. The other is character. And when it comes to character, it's really getting through who am I on a fundamental level? Meaning, who am I outside of the nation in which I lived? Who am I outside of the religion I was raised on? Who am I outside of the family name that I was birthed into, and all of that collective story? Who am I outside of the region in which I live? Who am I outside of my meat suit? Who am I really? And the great thing about that is that's a never ending journey. I mean, it ends when I don't want to make any claims about the afterlife or anything, but the ego of Thomas will be unraveling until the ego of Thomas is diminished. Yeah. So let's get back to the physical part. So in 2012, you embarked on a 7,000-mile bicycle ride for suicide awareness. Mm-hmm. What inspired you to take such a physically and emotionally challenging journey? And how did it transform your own healing process in this time?
So, as goofy as this might sound, I like to think that I'm a very logical person these days, but I do like to dabble with mystery. And what really inspired me to go on this bike ride is synchronicity. After 2008 and working with Kim for 10 years, I met an individual who became my traveling companion on the bike ride. And he was the first person that I had met that lost somebody to suicide as well. So it was the first person that I had met outside of my own experience, my family members, my brother's colleagues, my brother's friends. So it was just having my community grow by one was profound. When we first decided to hang out, we met through work. And when we first decided to hang out outside of work, the first pillar or the first stage of synchronicity happened. We met at a coffee shop that was open till like midnight, and he was reading this book called My Ishmael, which is the third book in the Ishmael trilogy by Daniel Quinn, and I was actually reading the second book, The Story of B. And Daniel Quinn is in a even though he writes fictional stories, he has an agenda, and it's all about self-awareness and story and the narrative that we adopt and we're conditioned by, both the national narrative and the personal narrative. So that was like the first thing that we had in common. And after I told him about my brother and things that I had been experiencing, later that night, he told me that he lost his brother to suicide. So that was the second thing. We had like this commonality. The third thing was a couple days later when I asked him like when his birthday was, and it's my traveling companion's name was Zach. Zach told me that his birthday was September 7th, which is the exact same birthday as my brother. So I automatically know, I was like, okay, there's something to miss here. Like the universe is speaking to me. There's like this weird connection with this new person in my life. Fast forward 6 months, June of 2010, summertime. I'm photographing for a community gathering. There is an alternative. There's a pinup website that is for alternative beauty called Suicide Girls, which it's their way of being edgy and cute. So women with tattoos, colored hair, and piercings. And I was asked to just photograph their community party at a bar where a lot of the pinup women were meeting with fans and stuff at a bar. So that wasn't really like my bars aren't really my kind of scene. Clubs aren't really my kind of scene. I like to be a little bit quiet, and I like space to be able to have conversation without yelling. And so I called Zach and I was like, "Hey man, come hang out with me. I'm hiding behind a camera and I just want somebody to like chat with from time to time." And so he came over and we were talking. I was in the midst of an existential crisis. I was dating a new woman, and she was awesome. And I was friends with Zach, and it was great to have him there. And I was just once again excelling in film school, but there was something missing. There was I just felt like there was just something gnawing in my mind and in my soul, like you're meant to do something different. And so I had this conversation with Zach, and I told him about the walk that I did across the country in 2006. And then he was like, "I would do something like that, but I'm not going to walk. I'd rather ride my bike." And even though I just said that I was a logical person, it doesn't mean my logic is always correct. Because in my logic-minded thinking, I was like, you know what? On a bike, you could travel more distance a day. So why don't we just go longer and go further? Instead of doing 2,500 miles, let's do 7,000.
Why not?
I know. So we, and then we decided in that moment, if we're going to do it, let's do it to honor our brothers and not only honor them, but let's go out and learn from other people and people who've lost loved ones and to suicide, and what their experience was. What was their experience with law enforcement? What was their experience with their community? What was their experience with their healing journey? And And like that was the fourth thing of synchronicity. 2 suicide loss survivors have a conversation about riding their bicycles across the country for suicide awareness while attending a suicide girls community party. Like, I understand that like one suicide terminology is like real life trauma, and the other one is kind of like just goofy, like cultural edgy trend, but it was still very like, what? This is weird. Like, this is why we met. This is why we came together. We still talked about it for a few more months. It wasn't until February of 2011 that we just made the decision we're doing it. And from there, we had 13 months to plan, organize, in order to begin the process of executing the journey on March 1st, 2012 is when we started.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you had a message you wanted to share during the tour. What was it?
Yeah. So revolution inspired self-evolution. So the first thing was all about getting to know who you are as a person. And trauma really forces you to do that. You know, in our society here, we don't really have a built-in mechanism of our society that inspires or initiates one to learn about themselves. A journey of self-discovery, I've found, comes through 2 options. One, you need a humanities course for the degree in college at a university, and you find yourself in a mythology or philosophy class for a semester, and maybe your mind is cracked open that way. The second way is what I just mentioned, is through trauma. You know, you suffer some kind of trauma, some kind of loss, and you're sitting there asking, like, why did this happen to me? And you hopefully end up in a therapy class, or, you know, some people find themselves in yoga, and that's where it starts from there. And you go on a journey to try to figure out not only what happened to you, why it happened to you, and how to grow from it. And so that was like one of the messages that we wanted to like bring to people, was just like the idea of self-awareness and looking at their life as like its own narrative, and that they're the authors. And with that, talking about authorship of one's life really goes into the idea of art and creativity. That, like, I really feel that everybody is imbued with the art, the fire of creativity. Whether they want to believe it or not, whether they've ever tried to flex that muscle or not. Even if you don't view yourself as a creative person, I think art brings us together. It was a book, it was literature that brought Zach and I together. That was the first thing. And a lot of my friendships really started out of like appreciation of music and movies and different types of art. So we were kind of inviting people, like, in their journey of self-awareness, to really try to tap into that creative flame that exists within us all. And if you don't fancy yourself a painter, a poet, a photographer, an author, or what have you, look at your life as an empty canvas, and all the choices and decisions that you make could be the palette for the masterpiece that you have the potential to make. If you can't do it on a canvas, do it with your life.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's totally true what you told about creativity and art. So it's all within us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do believe that. There are some artists that I feel like might have felt a little annoyed by that sentiment, but, you know, artists sometimes are like any other group, like to feel that like they are special, and, you know, I think we all are. We just have to find what that special spark is, and sure, that is part of the journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, that's it. Your RISE philosophy revolves around revolution inspired by self-evolution. Can you elaborate on how personal transformation through self-awareness plays a role in healing and finding purpose?
I really just think, it's been 15 years, roughly 13 years since I came up with that. It's really a pretentious way of just saying know thyself. But it's got a ring to it, so I keep it. I just think self-awareness is the only game in town. If you choose, if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Hindu or whatever, like, that's great. And that you have this mystical kind of like dogma connected to how you live your life. But I still don't think that people that attach themselves to a religion, I don't think that a large percentage of them are truly connected to the concept of self-awareness. A lot of people, and I'm trying not to generalize, but a lot of people that I've met and that I've had experience with, they they pick that religion that was either taught to them or something that they decided to believe almost in retaliation for how they were raised. It's like I have like a set of rules, and I'm checking the box, and that's not what I'm talking about with self-awareness. Self-awareness is a frightening journey. There is no book, there is no step-by-step telling you what to do and how to do it. You're writing your book. Anybody who's trying to sell you something on a steps to optimizing your life, run away as fast as you can in the opposite direction. All right. Because their journey is their journey, and that's great that they came up with 10 or 12 steps of being happy and successful, but that is their formula for them that they came up with. You have to now be responsible individual and find your own. Can you be inspired by somebody else's journey? Can you be inspired by somebody else's steps? Sure, and give it a shot. Use what you can and bring it in, but it's all about your discovering, looking at something and like, okay, I'm going to do this. This part works. This part I resonate with and it works for me, but these other parts I don't want. And build your own playbook. We don't have anything it's kind of frustrating. For a long time, I was part of the aluminum hat brigade and really into conspiracies in my early years. In my 20s. But now I don't think it's a nefarious thing. I think it's more of just negligence and selfishness that keeps the people in power from instituting a type of curriculum that would help young people learn about who they are. So I think it's the only game in town, and it's you can be masterful at alienating people and alienate everybody in your life where they just don't want to come around you, but you still got one person that you're stuck with. Cradle to grave, you got one person you're always stuck with, and that's you. So you might as well figure out that person, get to know that person. I'll try to learn why that person feels the way they do about certain things, why they react to situations. And how that's going to change over time. That's the thing about self-awareness. You never get to the mountaintop. You never get to the summit. You get to the summit, like I said earlier in our conversation, when the ego manifestation of whoever your character is dies.
And let me remind you, so this is the Find Yourself, the Questions podcast. So what we do is enabling people to find themselves, not telling them what they have to be and what they have to think and how they should behave, just enabling them and showing them possibilities, showing them examples, and letting them decide for their own.
Yeah. I think it's important. It's okay to be a guide and to be a listener. Like, the greatest thing you can do for anybody that's like dealing with anything is not try to solve their problem, but sit there and just give them their time and space and listen. Because that's a thing about, like, even in therapy, like a therapist will usually like have some perspectives that they'll share and you can take it or leave it. But it's just like a thought in your head and the thought spoken out have two different textures. You know, when it's rolling around in your head, it's one thing, and it's like one kind of energy, and it can affect you in a different way. But as soon as you start speaking it out loud, it transforms, and you can hear it better. You can hear it better when you speak it out loud. So I think that's the one thing that's really beautiful about therapy, or just having a friend or somebody that can like sit and listen to you and give you the opportunity to get it out of your head.
Yeah. Let's talk more about spoken concepts. So you host 2 mental health focused podcasts, the Inner Monologue and Stages. How do these platforms help you and your guests explore mental health challenges, and how do they differ in their approaches?
Well, they're both of the podcasts are on the same channel called Rise Frequency. For anybody that's interested, and like depending on what podcast I post, I just change the logo, and then like the title is at the beginning of the actual title of that episode. So Inner Monologue was really was created out of a need for me to reconnect with people. Writing is a lonely creative venture. It isn't until you start getting some editors or you start sharing it with people. But during like the first major phase of a writing project, you're kind of by yourself. And then I had suffered an injury, a back injury. I was in and out of a wheelchair and on and off of a cane for a few months back in 2015, most of 2015. And I just wanted a way to reconnect with people. So I also was like struggling with the book. I wasn't digging it very much. So I started in 2016 Inner Monologue, which is a long format, long conversational interview format. And at first I just was having people on who lost loved ones to suicide, but then I kind of like started to expand it to different avenues. So I had people that were artists, I had people that were healers, I had traditional healers, non-traditional healers, and through their vocation or through their creative path, we got into trauma. And not only did doing that podcast help me find my voice. It helped me find my voice, so I was able to like go back to my book and put in the way that I speak on the podcast into the book, make it as conversational as possible. And I just love stories. I think storytelling has been around for a long time. It was probably invented before the wheel. The need to discuss.
Yeah, the first ever language. For sure.
And I even had this something that I've been ranting about for a few years is that like I would say that language is the first true technology because it informs reality around people. Like language creates a belief system, and belief system creates reality tunnels. So language is like a very complex psychological technology that I don't think we really like. And I think we kind of take for granted, and we don't really respect the power that technology has on all of us. So, I just really loved connecting with people and hearing their stories. I love storytelling. That's why I love podcasts like this and what you're doing. I think people like you that have these formats and have these like conversations with people is just it's empowering not only for your listeners but for you as the guest and for the hosts. Stages was born out of something different. I had kind of like I don't have Inner Monologue. I've kind of like postpone that a little bit. There's still 300 episodes that you can go and listen to, like 300 different perspectives and stories, so it's still available. This is like my time to kind of like promote myself because I've been promoting other people for 6 years. But Stages, I think, is something that it comes out every other week. I created that. It's more of like an audio diary, and where an Inner Monologue episode could be an hour and a half, Stages is usually between 15 and 30 minutes. It's just like an audio diary. I come into the office or the creative room where me and my partner Sharon, she's a painter, and I just kind of like vent out my feelings. And it started 6 months after my mom died, back in May of she passed away back in May of 2023. And 6 months later, I just started recording these little sessions where I talk about things, because I'm still dealing with the grief of my mother's passing, while also caretaking for my father. And I never wanted children, and even though my father can live on his own, it was very much a matriarchal house. He did all of the hard, heavy lifting chores, and she ran the household and the bills and all that. And so I've had to learn all that. There's things he knows. I got him where he knows how to like write certain bills, but other stuff like the, quarterly bills, annual bills, biannually bills, like all that stuff I have scheduled. I go through all of his mail like a couple times a week. And it's just been like really difficult to both grieve properly while also taking care of somebody when I've never wanted that responsibility. It's been a learning journey, and I think Stages kind of helps me process that. I have a therapist that I talk to, but coming in and sitting in front of the microphone, it's almost like an exorcism. It helps me to get the demon out. Sometimes the episodes are sad and sappy, and sometimes I think I'm pretty funny. Sometimes they could be a little ludicrous and entertaining. So that's helped me just to kind of like process my thoughts.
Yeah.
As a writer, I am very particular about my style of writing. Instead of going in and typing a bunch of garbage out, I'd rather speak a bunch of garbage out. That's the way I get it out of my head. And then like I've released the clutter, and I can go in and it gives me a little bit better rhythm to write.
Mm-hmm. For listeners who are struggling with their own mental health or seeking their purpose, what practical steps would you recommend they take to start their journey toward healing and self-awareness?
Well, I mean, having a therapist doesn't help. I know it can be difficult here in the States. I don't know if you all have, what kind of healthcare do you all have? Is it?
No, it's not much better in our country. So if you want medical treatment, you have to wait for months and years to get the treatment. Okay. So, I mean, having a therapist or some kind of like person that isn't like a friend or family member is like always a good start. But when it comes to like finding your purpose, I think you just have to go out and read some books from people, find and experiment with things. We're experience creatures. We're built on experience. So go out and have those experiences. Like I really loved photography, so I did that. I love writing, so I do that. I know some artistic tools, like if you were into filmmaking, is going to be a little bit more expensive. If you love it, you'll find a way to make it happen. But also go out and explore. I love my bicycle. I love to go hiking. I just try to do things not for the sake of doing them, but to seeing if they spark something within me. I think that's kind of like the first test. Find a place to be quiet. And people really mistake sometimes what meditation is. Meditation is not emptying your mind. Your mind's primary function is to process everything. So it's going to do that, and you can't shut it down, and you don't want to shut it down. You show me somebody without an ego, and I'll show you a corpse. Just the whole purpose of meditation, or if you're just trying to is just get quiet and start a relationship with the thoughts that you have. Get to know yourself. Start doing breathing, deep breathing, and get in touch with your body.
try to find a quiet space and just you don't even have to do the deep breathing, just do subtle breathing and recognize the thoughts that you're having in your head. Start a journal, write all that stuff down. I think it's the most important is that you can have a relationship with your thoughts, and you can, when you build a relationship with your thoughts, you recognize that they are separate from you, and you can be like, nah, that's just me. That's my golem. I've named my golem. and I think it's important to also have a relationship with your golem, because once you create those relationships, you separate it from yourself, and then it can be something that you can negotiate with.
Yeah. You have to talk to it.
Yeah. You don't have to take ownership.
No. So, Thomas, you talk about the myth of being a tool for understanding our personal narratives. How has your exploration of myth shaped your sense of purpose, and how can others tap into their own personal myth?
I'm a big fan of mythology. Mythology is really the study of us on a more creative level. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Myth is everywhere. It's in our music, it's in our poetry, it's in our cinema, it's in our television, it's in our literature. You can't get away from myth. Myth is about the human experience, asking those deeper questions with the glitz and glamour of epic storytelling. But it didn't end with the stories that are hundreds of years old or thousands of years old. As a non-Christian, my love of myth allows me to read different religious books and find the poetry in those books and the story and the lesson that they're trying to share. I don't take it as historical fact. As Joseph Campbell said, if you want to kill your religion, biography it. There's more power in it as just a story with lessons to learn from, and it's deeper than just one line of a passage that can be taken out of context. That there's a deeper story that is happening. I find myth just from watching television. I find the myth in our own lives when I'm listening to my friends tell me about their life. And I understand the different archetypes and the different things that they're dealing with and how it resonates with different stories. I really got excited about myth because when I was on that walk across the country, the minister, again, one of the things that on their platform that they were walking was the importance of secular art is just as powerful as scripture. And so this minister he had a segment that he called Real Faith that he would do a couple times a year. And he would take a movie, a contemporary secular movie, and he would have the congregation watch it. And then he would break clips from it and he would resonate it. He would show how it resonates with a story that he wanted to talk about in his sermon, and he would play the clip again during his sermon. And that just goes to show you that the hero does have 1,000 faces, and it's everywhere. That's why our stories have similar motifs that they're trying to express to all humanity, despite the story being separated by space, geography, and time. There's a reason why we all have like a flood story. There's a reason why a lot of our heroes go through that same thing where they're killed, they go through hell, and then they're resurrected again. These are motifs that are trying to help us understand who we are in the world and what our purpose is. And you can't get away from myth. I don't care how commercialized a piece of art is, it still is bound to our humanness because it's made by humans who've had human experiences. And so by that, they are also enwrapped, enveloped, and captured by myth. There's no way to express a story that doesn't have some type of like mythical reference to it, as long as you have, you're a human with a human heart living on this planet. It's just, we're all stuck. It's the reality in which we're all kind of a part of. So yeah, how did it inform me? I'm a huge nerd. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I'm a science fiction nerd. I am a sci-fi fantasy nerd. I grew up on Star Wars. I grew up on comic books. And as I got a little bit older, I appreciate more of the sophistication of a really good science fiction story. And I love reading. So I love it. And if you read my book, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey, each chapter is named after a step in Joseph Campbell's monomyth of the hero's journey. So I have my layman's term definition of what that step is. And then I have lyrics from a song and dialogue from a movie on the cover page of that chapter that resonate with that step. And then you go into my story and my journey on that step of the monomyth. Yeah. And it's my way of inviting people to look at their lives and be it's another tool of self-awareness, of looking at their lives as being the main character in their story and where they are on their journey.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept. I will fetch your book. Finally, so let's talk about community. You highlight the importance of community in your philosophy. Mm-hmm. Can you share how collaboration and compassion in community settings have enhanced your work in mental health advocacy?
I mean, we all go through so much in life by ourselves. Even with a community, you're still the person that has to go through it. But having people around you that, you know, I'm going to make this very, very simple. Getting a hug from somebody is monumental. The feeling of touch, the feeling of compassion from somebody when you're going through a hardship in life is monumental. It helps us as we go through it. Like nobody dies with us. We die alone, even if we're dying next to somebody. We're still going through that. We're having our own individual experience. If we go into surgery, we're the ones having the surgery, but like it just helps having somebody near or around you that cares, that has empathy and has compassion for the journey and is just willing to stand next to you while you go through it in any situation. And that's why it's always been important for me that, you know, I've broken awareness down into 3 levels. First, you have self-awareness, then you have spatial awareness. Spatial awareness is the people that you interact with on a daily basis and the areas in which you occupy on those days. And then you have social awareness, which is just having compassion for those that have a different perspective and maybe a different color meat suit than you're wearing. And I think it's important for us, knowing how hard our struggles can be and how traumatic they can be, to be aware of other people's struggles. And you can't ask for somebody to walk with you if you're not first willing to walk with them. So I think it's just important to be aware that even on your crankiest day, it's not about you and that other people are going through it just as much. So even when I'm dealing with somebody and that they're cranky, sometimes I try to imagine my passion is all of this stuff. The way I pay my bills is that I work in a library, and like libraries in our society is the last place where people can go to without the expectation of spending money. And we get a lot of homeless people and people with suffering mental health issues, mental health stuff in our libraries. And librarians are asked to act as social workers, even though they have zero training to do so. But we show up as best we can. And what I try to do before I even go and sit down at a service point to work with the public is that I imagine that anybody that could come up to me that has a bad attitude or that is cranky, I just imagine that person before they came in here, like, what kind of news did they get? Did they just get out of the doctor and they got like horrible news, health news? Are they dealing with a divorce? Are they dealing with the loss of a partner, a loss of a pet, a loss of a friend? Did they just get fired? So I try to like just create this reality of a hardship that somebody might have gone through, and that helps me have a little bit more compassion, even for the crankiest of patrons that I find myself working with.
And I think we don't need training to do this. It's social work, and social work belongs to human beings, and we are humans. So
Agreed.
As long as we can act humanly, we don't need training. We just need to talk to the other people and communicate and see what's happening. Yeah.
It takes time. Some people are a little bit more awkward than others, but
sure.
It's like any other skill. You could learn it. Some people are born with like a great, overwhelming sense of compassion and empathy. Some people aren't, but it doesn't mean you can't learn it.
So we are nearing the end of this interview. Is there anything else we need to discuss, Thomas?
I will just know thyself. Self-awareness is the only game in town. I will repeat that. That's going to be on my headstone.
It's the Delphi Oracle.
Yeah. It's very, very important to go on that journey. Even if you lose your way, you can always find yourself back to your path of self. Figure out, write your own playbook, figure yourself out, and know that there is no summit, that every single day with each new experience, your perception is going to change. And so just be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and learn as much as you can from both the good and bad parts of your personality.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you, Bernd.
To learn more about Thomas' incredible journey on his ongoing work, be sure to check out his website at www.risephoenix.org. You also can listen to his podcast in a monologue and stages, as we talked about. And for more stories of resilience, healing, and the power of self-awareness, attend these podcasts. Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your journey and wisdom with us today. Your story is a powerful reminder of the strength that can come from grief and the importance of community and creativity in healing. We're grateful for the work you do and for inspiring us to rise above life's challenges. Thank you for being here, and we wish you all the very best in your continued mission.
Thank you. It was great being here.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us today. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Your feedback helps us continue to provide you with inspiring and transformative content. So until next time, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. And remember, the path to a fulfilling life begins with a single step. So stay tuned for more empowering conversations on Find Yourself, the Questions podcast. I hope this episode has inspired you to ask questions and explore your true self. Join us tomorrow for more insightful discussions and next month for inspirational talks on your journey to personal growth and happiness. Till next time, stay mindful, confident, and let your light shine brightly. Goodbye. Maybe you're just a question away from your best year. Thomas.
Thank you so much.